Is it hysteria or is it common sense? Would you board this cruise ship? 3 people have already died, and today this cruise ship offloading 3 sick passengers. The culprit is Hantavirus. It's a rare virus, but if you get it, it can be deadly, very deadly. In fact, it kills 1 out of 3 who are infected. And at this hour, this ship is on the move. It's looking for a place to dock. The virus is causing global alarm from South Africa, Argentina, Spain, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Who was exposed? Not only passengers on this cruise ship, but airplanes, airports, ports of entry. We've been here before. Remember COVID? A dangerous but less deadly virus. But with such a mobile world, people traveling in and around the globe, including in and out of the United States, should America be worried? Today, we also have an update on Nancy Guthrie. She's been missing for more than 3 months, and now some neighbors of hers have something new to worry about. Now the sheriff in charge has some words for FBI Director Kash Patel. And also coming up, Epstein Island. Who went there, and what do they know?
We haven't talked to too many people that have admitted they've been on the island, so it's my understanding he wasn't on the island very long, and he was there with his wife and kids, but we'll see what he says.
Who is Chairman Comer talking about? It is Trump cabinet member Howard Lutnick. Today, the Secretary of Commerce testified on Capitol Hill. But first, is Iran ready to make a deal? Here's what President Trump said earlier.
In the case of Iran, we're not going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to let that happen, and we won't let that happen. And so we're dealing with people that want to make a deal very much, and we'll see whether or not they can make a deal that's satisfactory to us.
Trump says it is like a wall of steel. Today, an Iranian oil tanker headed for Iran met that wall of steel. U.S. Central Command says American forces issued multiple warnings to the tanker. The ship ignored the warning, so a U.S. fighter jet fired several rounds at the rudder of the tanker. CENTCOM says the tanker was disabled as a consequence and is no longer headed to Iran. Now back to the United States. You already know this. In fact, you are feeling it. Gas prices are still up, and they're going up. Right now, AAA has an average gallon of gas costing $4.54. That is up 40 cents a gallon more from 1 month ago. It's also up $1.40 more per gallon from 1 year ago. And despite these high prices and an ongoing war, many Republicans backed by Trump won big in elections last night. In Indiana, Trump-backed challengers ousted 5 state senators. Former White House Chief of Staff and former Congressman representing North Carolina, Mark Meadows, joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And would you have guessed the president's, I guess success is the word to say, in Indiana in light of the fact that gas prices are going up and there's even division with his own party about Iran?
Well, it was an impressive victory for the president. I think Indiana sent 2 messages. One is President Trump's endorsement still matters to them. And the other is that they're not Illinois, and that Indiana needs to start acting like it. You know, part of this is not just the president weighing in. It's picking up on really the fairness of redistricting and what they've seen happening in Illinois, and yet it didn't happen in Indiana. And so the voters were very clear last night. And yes, gas prices have risen. I think most people see that as a very temporary thing. The president has enjoyed very low gas prices in his first term and much of his second term. They believe it'll return to that, but it was an impressive victory nonetheless.
You know, I hear people say gas is a temporary thing, but to me it's a little bit like Vegas. You know, you throw the dice, you don't know what you're going to get. And, you know, and in history, gas has gone up and it's gone down, but yes, it's gone up. And let's say that the war gets bigger, then all of a sudden the prices are going to go up bigger, so that temporary high is not going to be so temporary. It's going to feel really long-term for those people who buy gas, especially for commuters who live in the outer areas, even like of Washington, where the cheaper housing can often be. So I don't know if this, I don't know this gas price thing. I don't have as much confidence as you do. I'm just guessing.
Well, I can tell you that obviously it's amazing how quickly gas prices go up. when oil prices just go up gradually. So the reaction in that market, obviously we're looking at commodities market, has really, I think, overshot and advanced beyond what the real supply and demand can be. But the other, you got two factors. One, oil going up. You've got an economy that continues to go, and yet it is painful. For those that are tuned in right now, if you live in a rural area like I do, I mean, 60, 70 bucks to fill up your car is not unusual anymore. And so we've got to get it down. I am bullish that it will come down. I've seen the president act in a very deliberate way in the first administration. I'm sure that he's got all his people focused on that as well. I think Secretary Bassett, said help is on the way. The real question is will it get here soon enough to make a difference in the November elections? And that was your point, and it's a valid one.
Well, I also would want a little more transparency from these people, the people who give us gas. Because you talked about how the oil by barrel is going up, but it seems like gas prices are going up at a much faster rate. So I'd like to see President Trump bring the heads of these big Exxon and Mobil and all these big companies, Chevron, bring them to the White House and find out why are the prices going up so much quicker and so much faster than the barrel of oil? Are they taking advantage of sort of our weakness right now, and that as we're trying to sort of dig out of a situation where we've got a country that's trying to threaten the world with a nuclear weapon?
Yeah, I can't really speak to whether the commodity of gas, we're a net exporter of refined oil. And so when you start to look at that, those kinds of projections go very quickly. And we've in the United States have long enjoyed lower gas prices than our European allies. That being said, I can tell you the president won't stand for them staying long. He will bring them in. I've been in the cabinet room when he's brought oil producers and refiners in and said, guys, we need to make sure America is humming again. And I'm confident that he will do that along with Secretary Bassett and some of the others on his staff.
Well, if we export so much and we've gotten so little help from our allies in Iran, if we held a little bit more gas back here and flooded the market, so to speak, the price would come back down here. Maybe some of our allies would be more interested in helping us with Iran and the nuclear weapon, because that really is their fear too. I mean, that's just as much of a problem for them as it is for us.
Well, it is, and I mean, when you look at the European allies, many of them have gone to the streets in years past where gas prices were just so high for a liter over there, not a gallon, a liter of gas, and so they push back, and yet what we need to understand is this president's all about America first. Hopefully, some of the Venezuela actions that have been taken over the last several months and refineries. Bluntly, we need to do more refining in the United States, and hopefully that's something that Secretary Lee Zeldin and others at EPA see. We've made it almost impossible to build new refineries, and yet you can go to Brazil and others, and they can build it in half the time. So I'm all about America first, but I also believe that you need to make sure that we do flood with some of the supply here in America to get these prices down.
Well, I think it also, at least my guess, is that it disproportionately impacts the middle class more than anyone else. People, I mean, because the people with a lot of money, they don't worry about the prices, number one. Number two, at least in an urban area like D.C., they can live close in, and they can send their kids to the private schools. But if you want to get to some other school, you might have to go out farther. Now you're commuting more, and so really, I would think there would disproportionately feel the bite among the middle class as they're trying to live their lives.
Well, of course they do, Greta, and I think one of the difficulties are, for those single moms or single dads who are, transporting their kids to a school. and they don't have mass transit and others. You know, in the cities, it's amazing. The price of gas has always been higher in Washington, D.C., as you know, and I know, and yet it doesn't seem to be the clarion call that we've got to get it down, because you go a lot further on a gallon of gas in Washington, D.C., but it can take a full tank, you know, multiple times a week if you're going back and forth to school and waiting in the school line to pick up your kids. It is very, very difficult, and it's not just there. It funnels through to groceries and everything else. The main driver of inflation is fuel cost, and so that's the part that we need to get under control. And it should be an all hands on deck kind of approach with this administration.
Well, President Bush 41 didn't know what a barcode was, and he didn't know, I think, what a gallon of milk cost, because they do live in a different world. President Trump hasn't pumped his gas probably in 60 or 70 years. He lived in New York where people don't have cars to begin with, and now he's got the beast. So I mean, I sometimes think there's a disconnect between the White House and these sort of everyday things like gasoline.
Well, some in the White House for sure, Greta, but I can tell you the president, where he does most of his information gathering, he'll go. The reason why we have no tax on tips is because he was talking to waiters and waitresses. You know, he says, what about this? Wouldn't this be great? He's the kind of guy that'll go into a McDonald's and say, what is pressing you? I've never seen anyone ask more informed questions from people where it matters than this president. And so his cabinet needs to do the same. I'm sure that they are, but it is not lost on him. The real question becomes we can't discount the impact that it's having on so many people. And you're right to say, well, these middle class wage earners, it's affecting them the most. Don't discount it and say, well, gosh, it's transitory, like Janet Yellen would say with inflation. We have to recognize it is a problem. It is something that we have to address, but there's no one better in an Oval Office than this president to be able to address it.
Yeah, and I'm sure if we brought those CEOs into the Oval Office, they might get a little nervous and might want to do something. Anyway,
well, they
Mark
should be.
Meadows, thank you, sir.
All right, take care.
Indeed. Thank you. Now to some good news on former Mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani. Newsmax is reporting that the former New York City mayor has left the ICU and is recovering. This past weekend, Giuliani, who was 81, was having trouble breathing. He was hospitalized in West Palm Beach, and now he is expected to be released in a few days. A person close to the family says is, quote, nothing short of a miracle, and, quote, his recovery over the last several days has been remarkable, end quote. Coming up, now it is Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick's turn. He's on the hot seat about his ties to disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. That when the record continues.
My earwax buildup was frustrating. Then I tried new Lipo Earwax Cleanser. The revolutionary formula dissolves earwax 5 times faster than the leading brand and helps prevent future buildup. Feel the difference with new Lipo Earwax Cleanser.
At Omaha Steaks, we do burgers differently. We take a premium aged steak like this and turn it into a pure ground burger like this. So this is actually a ribeye. This is a New York strip, top sirloin, beef brisket, and this is a filet mignon. For a limited time, our Burger Perfection flight comes with 20 big juicy burgers, all for just $79.99. Get it today at omahasteaks.com/TV. This is Burger Perfection, guaranteed.
Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Dale, we can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
Stop, check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
Today, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick testified before the House Oversight Committee. He was there not to talk about the Commerce Department. Instead, he was there to testify about his ties to disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. The Commerce Secretary's testimony took place behind closed doors, but House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer confirmed that a transcript of his testimony will be released in the next few days. During a break in the testimony, Chairman Comer said this.
There's only so many questions you can ask Howard Lutnick, who had a property next door to Epstein in New York, but talked to him 3 times over a decade, 3 interactions over a decade. He was on the island with his family, with his wife and kids, 6 people in his family and 6 people in his friend's family, for lunch for 2 hours, and he has admitted that.
Professor Emeritus of Howard Law School, Alan Dershowitz, joins me, and nice to see you, sir. And Chairman Comer says that Howard Lutnick admitted to having lunch with his family and with Jeffrey Epstein, which is not a crime by any means, to having lunch with somebody.
It's a capital offense. It's subject to the death penalty. Having breakfast is not a crime. Lunch is definitely a crime, and dinner is like, a war crime.
Yeah. What was the purpose in calling Lutnick a neighbor? What do you think that the Commerce Committee is looking for? And is it both Republican and Democrat, or they're just Democrat?
No, it's bipartisan. Let me explain to you why they call him. For the same reason that they won't call me. I have offered to testify. I know more about Jeffrey Epstein between 1996 and 2010 than maybe any other human being other than Ghislaine Maxwell. I know everything. They won't call me because they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear that most of the women who are claiming to be victims and survivors were adults who came back over and over again to get their $250. Some of them then went out and recruited other people for money. And some of them never met Jeffrey Epstein. They were just told by their lawyers to come in and collect $50,000. There are some real victims, 16 and 17-year-olds, who actually did have some sexual contact with Epstein. But they don't want to hear the truth. They just want to get people...
Why don't you just say it? Why then, forget being testified. Why not just, I guess I can't remember if the attorney-client survives death or not, but why not just tell it? I mean, if they're not going to be transparent, what do you got to lose?
Nothing. And I have written a book about it, Guilt by Accusation. I have written another book called The Price of Principle. I've talked about it every day. From the day I was first falsely accused, and the woman, of course, ultimately rescinded her accusations.
She said she was mistaken. She said she was mistaken about you or something like that, that she had the wrong person or something.
Completely clear. But from day one, I said, I want to talk about this. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I want everything to come out. But people don't want the truth to come out. This is just McCarthyism. Just anybody who had lunch with Jeffrey Epstein is now somehow canceled. Now, I was his lawyer.
What is it that, well, okay, 2 things. One is that I think there's an article that said that there is one person who's got the goods on or something, that he was going to blackmail. Maybe I think that, correct me if I'm wrong. The second thing, and what is it that the Oversight Committee could ask you that would be in any way illustrative of any important points? Or what is it that you could do for them?
Well, I can tell them exactly how Epstein led his life, how he kept totally separate and private, his private life from his life with his business associates. I can tell you about people I know that he met, people I know who have been falsely accused. But I can mostly tell you about many of these women who have made the accusations. For example, there are two sisters who have perjuriously claimed things. For example, like they reported to the FBI that they were abused. And it's been on CNN every day virtually, the Farmer sisters. Well, it turns out we have the evidence. That never happened. One of them reported
how do you prove that? How do you prove the non-evidence of that? I mean, how do you prove when someone says, you did some what?
Know that we know what the FBI produced. The FBI produced what they told them. And what they told them was that maybe Epstein had stolen some pictures of her as a young woman, and the FBI didn't investigate that. Of course not. The FBI doesn't investigate stolen pictures. But there's no evidence that either of them told the FBI that they have been subject to rape or anything like that. And yet that is out there. So I could, and not only I, but others, if Ghislaine Maxwell were given some kind of a deal, the way the mafia is given a deal when they've killed 15 people, if she were given a deal, she could tell an enormous amount because she booked all the everything.
Do you have a sense there's something to tell? I mean, this article's right is that one person has the goods on, or suppose that's my word. But does she have? Do you have reason to believe she even has something to say, or is she sort of playing that, looking for a pardon or a commutation?
She has a lot to say, but it's not what the government wants to hear because there isn't much there. There was no sex trafficking ring. They say he's a pedophile because he had sex with a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old. That would mean he was a pedophile in Florida, but not in England, because in England it's perfectly legal to have sex with a 16-year-old. All these things are just out there. I can help, and she could help, and there are others who could help tell the truth. And the truth is so boring and so much less interesting. This business with the Secretary of Commerce is absurd. Everybody knew Jeffrey Epstein. He was a man about town. People went and visited him. He extended invitations to people to come visit him. But nobody saw anything wrong because he kept completely private and secret. He had a separate entrance, separate staircases up to where we now know he did his bad things. And he did terrible things, and he was a terrible human being. But not anything like what we've heard. I mean, my God, they make him sound like he's the worst sex offender in history. And he's like a 3 or 4 on a scale of 10 compared to some of the other things that we've had testimony about recently. But nobody will let go of this because Democrats want to use Republicans. Republicans want to use Democrats.
You said more bombs since 96 to 2010 than probably anybody else. Why did you get that sweetheart deal in 2008 from the federal prosecutor, from the U.S. attorney?
We were able to prove conclusively that he never traveled in interstate commerce for sex purposes. That's the federal statute. And so the federal government understood that they would lose if they indicted him federally. So they made the best deal they possibly could, getting him to plead to state charges. And he got a longer sentence than anybody ever in the history of Palm Beach County for having sex with I think a 17 and 11-month-old young woman. It wasn't a sweetheart deal at all. In fact, he fired me and he wouldn't pay me my fee because he said it was the worst deal he had ever seen. So he didn't think it was a sweetheart deal. I thought it was a fair arm's length deal. I've done dozens and dozens of these. There was nothing sweethearty about this deal compared to other deals I've gotten in my career. So, it's all exaggerated and all part of this McCarthyism that is destroying the rights of individuals. People have suffered grievously from being associated with Epstein without even knowing anything about anything wrong that he did. And so that has to stop because, he's done more harm to people dead than most people do alive. And it's because everybody wants to benefit from it. Nobody wants the truth. If you want the truth, call people who know the truth, not people who may have had lunch with him 3 times. That's just abusing the process.
I hope Chairman Comer is listening. I hope he calls you and so you get to talk to him.
On the record. Let's get the truth of this. I want every piece of paper, every document out there. Let me give you one more example quick. One of the things released says redacted person, redacted adult. said she gave oral sex to Donald Trump and she bit his penis. You know, that never happened. It's totally false. Yet her name is redacted. His name is printed. He can't sue her because he can't get her name. Or one of the other things that was released says redacted adult said she gave Alan Dershowitz a shoulder massage on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane. That never happened. And if that name is revealed, I will sue this woman. But they don't want to reveal the name. Why are they keeping secret the name of adults who are lying and committing perjury and obstructing Congress? Why are they protecting these criminals, the criminals who are committing crimes, in order to collect money? That's what we should be looking at. And if I were to testify, I would name names and tell you who's saying these things.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And a visionary media maverick, philanthropist, and my former boss, Ted Turner. Earlier today, the CNN founder died at his Florida home surrounded by his family. In 2018, Turner announced he'd been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, which is a degenerative disease that causes dementia and muscle failure. Turner is survived by his 5 children, 14 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. It's been a long time since Ted Turner launched CNN and changed the way news is delivered for everybody. 4 of us, though, are still anchors on the air, believe it or not. Wolf Blitzer, Stuart Varney, Bill Hemmer, and me. And this is a fact. Everyone who worked for Ted loved Ted. He was fun. He was also, well, a wild man, but that's true of many visionaries. Ted Turner, one of a kind, he was 87 years old.
Greg Kelly over at Newsmax. The Newsmax people have been really terrific. Newsmax has been terrific.
President Trump is right. Millions are watching Newsmax and Greg Kelly. Tune in tonight.
It's 2 a.m. Your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed. And you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Big corporate insurers are putting your health care on hold.
We're sorry. All of our representatives are still...
While your costs go up. Why? Because for large corporate health insurers, the more they deny and delay your care, the more they make.
All of our representatives are still assisting other customers.
Don't let big corporate insurers keep your health care on hold.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
They tell you to optimize, to hack. But what if you were never broken? Armor Colostrum, the first food of life, reawakens your innate brilliance. 400 nutrients, 4 seconds, 1 daily revival.
My husband is Michael J. Cardus. In March, he got a phone call that said, "You have lymphoma, it's treatable." He died the next morning. My biggest fears were, how do I financially support the kids? How do I emotionally support the kids? And then Tunnel to Towers paid off my mortgage. I felt like I was seen, that my service mattered to somebody.
We have an inside look at the cruise ship where the deadly hantavirus is causing global alarm. A passenger aboard the cruise ship filmed the captain discussing the first death. The first death was back on April 12. The same passenger left the ship on April 24th. Here's that video.
This is my sad duty to inform you that one of our passengers sadly passed away last night. Tragic as it is, it was due to natural causes, we believe. I'm told by the doctor we're not infectious. So the ship is safe when it comes to that. Anyways, the ship is safe. This gentleman unfortunately succumbed to natural causes.
In response to the viral video, the ship's operator said at the time of that announcement, there was no evidence that a virus was on board. Okay, fast forward to now, and that cruise ship has a deadly virus outbreak. 3 people have died, and today 3 other passengers were evacuated, including the ship's doctor. Look at this chilling photo posted by the head of the WHO. It shows a person on a gurney. That person is suspected of being a hantavirus patient. The 3 passengers evacuated today are now in the Netherlands for treatment. Another patient's in intensive care in South Africa. Health officials in South Africa say that they have identified 62 people who had contact with people who left the ship, and another former passenger is being treated in Switzerland. Meanwhile, as more and more people are getting alarmed, WHO's top epidemic official says, quote, "This is not the next COVID," end quote. So where's the ship headed now? It is heading to Spain's Canary Islands. It will take 3 to 4 days to get there. Upon arrival, Spain's health minister says non-Spanish citizens will be sent back to their native countries. The 14 Spaniards aboard the ship will be brought to Madrid to quarantine. Officials say the remaining passengers on the ship are not showing any symptoms. By the way, the hantavirus is a rodent-borne illness. It usually spreads through rodent droppings. The mortality rate is high. It's about 30 to 40%. So what is the source of this hantavirus outbreak? 2 officials from Argentina spoke anonymously to the Associated Press. They said the Dutch couple who died last month got the virus while visiting a landfill during a birdwatching tour in Argentina. Of course, these 2 anonymous sources speaking to the AP don't say how they know that people got the virus that way. And note, authorities previously said that the area where the Dutch couple visited had never recorded a case of the hantavirus. Infectious disease specialist and general internist at Toronto General Hospital, professor at the University of Toronto, Dr. Isaac Bogoch, joins me. Nice to see you back, sir. And this seems curious to me. This seems curious to me is that the passengers who get off in Spain are going to be sent to quarantine, the Spanish ones, and then the other ones are going to be sent home to their home countries, I assume on airplanes. They're not getting quarantined. So I don't know why, but if they're going to quarantine the Spanish ones, why are they letting the other ones hop on planes to go to their home countries?
Yeah, well, I mean, we didn't see this happen at all during COVID, at all, right? Where you have different regions, different countries, different public health bodies taking completely different actions. And, you know, unfortunately, that thoroughly confuses people and breeds more mistrust among healthcare and public health, which is very unfortunate. We should have a unified, standardized approach here. And if people are being quarantined, it should be universal.
Well, okay, well then, see, either Spain's got it wrong on letting everybody go, or Spain's got it wrong on quarantining the Spanish who are disembarking there. A doctor, the ship's doctor was taken off. He's sick. I guess that when you deal with sick people, you're likely to get sick. But your thoughts on that?
Poor guy. I really feel bad for him. Obviously, I feel terrible for everybody impacted. But here's a physician on a ship, and as a physician, I know others as well. You know, we see sick people all the time. We know that we can be in harm's way. We take appropriate precautions to protect ourselves so that we can continue to do our jobs and do so safely. And I just wish him a speedy and full recovery. And as you pointed out, hantavirus is no laughing matter. It's a very, very serious viral illness, and it carries a mortality rate upwards of 25%. So if someone is symptomatic, sadly, they're in for a rough ride, and I wish him well. How
long is the virus active? I mean, if you have the virus, let's say that I hear that is it aerosol or is it droplets that it spreads by?
Yeah, it would be through the air. It would be through the air. And in fact, when most people acquire this from an exposure to nature, like droppings of a mouse or a rodent, they typically are disturbing it, like they're sweeping or brushing an area off, and you can accidentally aerosolize viral particles in that and then accidentally inhale it. Of course, if someone's sick and there's a lot of viral replication in the respiratory tract, if you're coughing, you can aerosolize that as well. Interestingly, when you look at other outbreaks of this exact same virus, for example, a very notable outbreak of this in 2018 in Argentina, the people who became ill with this from person-to-person contact were almost exclusively very close contact. So, for example, there was a case of a person who was sick with this who went to a birthday party. There were about 100 other people at that birthday party. But the 5 people who became ill with this virus from the ill individual who went to this birthday party were all in very close proximity and usually at the same table. Similarly, other people that got this infection from human to human transmission were like family contacts, household contacts. So it appears that, of course, it is transmissible from person to person, but the data we have to date demonstrates that you typically have to be in pretty close proximity to have that.
All right, let's say it's from a rodent. And how long can it sit there and still be an activated virus? Is it is it rodent urine or whatever, and then the rodent lives? How long is that virus active and at risk?
The short answer, nobody really knows, but a longer answer is that it's probably for quite a while. So, you know, it's difficult to say. And the important point is, listen, if people are cleaning up an attic, barn, shed, and there's rodent droppings there, rather than sweeping it up or vacuuming it up, the best thing to do is to get a liquid spray, a commercially available product with bleach in it, or you can make your own bleach-based products by diluting bleach with some water and spraying the area, dampening down the area so that the viral particles aren't aerosolized when it's being wiped up.
Or stuck on the end of the broom for the next time you use the broom and you stick it up in the air again. Anyway, Doctor, thank you very much for joining me again.
My pleasure.
And today, 2 Ohio brothers were sentenced to more than 20 years in prison. Why? Well, the Justice Department says they posed as Middle Eastern royalty and defrauded others. Zubair and Mohammed al-Zubair were convicted on multiple counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and theft of government funds. They were even helped by a former East Cleveland mayoral aide, Michael Smedley. That former mayoral aide allegedly provided cover for the brothers. In exchange, Smedley received, allegedly, lavish gifts. He was sentenced to 8 years. In one instance, prosecutors said 2 brothers told a Chinese investor they owned an industrial complex. They claimed they would bring a cryptocurrency business to the site. They allegedly stole $18 million from that Chinese investor. A judge said to the 2 brothers, quote, "You basically flaunted it by driving around in a Rolls Royce and taking private planes," end quote. Coming up, what FBI Director Kash Patel is saying about the Nancy Guthrie investigation. The sheriff in Arizona is not going to like this. That when the record continues.
Newsmax announced some big news today. We hit a milestone, surpassing 25 million followers across social media. That 25 million is a record number. Newsmax is big in TV, online, and of course, as we're telling you, social media. Newsmax saw really big gains across the board, but specifically on Facebook, Instagram, and Truth Social. If you are on social media sites, remember to follow Newsmax on your accounts to get the latest breaking news from our social channels. Read more about it on newsmaxinvest.com. Newsmax is on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol NMAX. We are growing fast, so join Newsmax, the news revolution today. Check it out at newsmaxinvest.com.
Sensitive mouth and gums? Ever heard of Closest mouthwash? Your dentist and hygienist have. They know Closest is ultra gentle for sensitive mouths with non-burning mouthwashes that freshen breath, improve gum health, and strengthen teeth. Closest, the gentle mouthwash for sensitive mouths.
If you're tired of dealing with those old gutters that are full of leaves, rusting in a spot or two, leaking, sagging, even falling off your home, then it's time to get rid of those old ugly gutters and call Leaf Guard, the only one-piece seamless rainwater management system with a clog-free guarantee. Leaf Guard has earned the Good Housekeeping seal 20 years in a row and offers 14 colors to choose from with Scratch Guard technology. Call now during our ugly gutters sale. Trade in your old gutters. We'll take them down, haul them away, and give you up to $500 for your old gutters towards your Leaf Guard purchase. 0 down and payment starting at just $75 a month. Leaf Guard has a lifetime transferable warranty, and if you call right now, you get a $100 Visa gift card with your estimate. Call 800-541-1274. Now, let me give you that number again. 1-800-541-1274.
I have recommended Leaf Guard to a couple of our neighbors.
They're a very professional company.
And one day they just made them all right there on spot.
With Leaf Guard's exclusive Big Mouth, the extra large opening and oversized downspouts can handle up to 32 inches of rainfall an hour. And our fascia wrap adds an extra layer of protection against water damage with a secure foundation to attach Leaf Guard. During our ugly gutters sale, trade in your old gutters. We'll take them down, haul them away, and give you up to $500 for your old gutters toward your Leaf Guard purchase. 0 down and payment starting at just $75 a month. Let me keep your gutters clean forever. And if you call right now, have a nice gift for you. A $100 Visa gift card with your estimate. Call 800-541-1274. Now, let me give you that number again. 1-800-541-1274.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Before Apoquel Chewable for allergic itch, giving dogs pills was a battle of wits.
Oh, Maria, I'm wise to your foolish game.
Is it gone?
Totally gone.
Relief for itchy dogs can be easier. Apoquel, the trusted #1 treatment for allergic itch, is available in a tasty chewable that works fast.
May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations, serious infections, or pre-existing cancers. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs under 12 months of age with serious infections or in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs.
Ask your vet for Apoquel Chewable.
Do it!
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonix Nail Gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonix, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. So effective, it's money-back guaranteed.
Yes, we have an update alert on Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. She's been missing for more than 3 months. FBI Director Kash Patel is speaking out about the Guthrie investigation on the Sean Hannity podcast. He says the FBI was kept out of the investigation the first 4 days. Patel makes clear in the podcast that the first 48 hours are crucial to the investigation of anyone missing. Patel adds that once the FBI was able to join the investigation, they were able to retrieve the doorbell camera footage. The FBI director also says the FBI was not able to quickly analyze the DNA found in Guthrie's home due to the decision by local law enforcement officials to send the evidence to a private lab in Florida instead of Quantico. The FBI did not receive the DNA evidence until mid-April. Yesterday, Prima County Sheriff Chris Nanos responded to Patel's interview, saying, in part, quote, "The FBI was promptly notified by both our department and the Guthrie family. While the FBI director was not on scene, coordination with the Bureau began without delay. Decisions regarding evidence processing were made on scene based on operational needs. The laboratory utilized by the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI laboratory in Quantico have worked in close partnership from the outset and continue to collaborate in the analysis of evidence," end quote. By the way, Guthrie's neighbors in Arizona are on edge. Last week, a doorbell camera caught a man wearing a face mask, gloves, and a baseball cap walking towards the home. Apparently, the man loaded several potted cacti onto the bed of his Ford F-150 truck. One of Nancy Guthrie's neighbors called the crime small but disturbing. Former United States Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, Jay Town, joins me. Jay, I don't blame the FBI for being angry at the sheriff, assuming that they were not notified right away, because the FBI is in the business of investigating. Sheriff in a town like that, not so much. Look at them stepping all over the blood on the front porch. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a mantra in law enforcement where I spent most of my adult life, which is our side of the battlefield, our being the good guys, our side of the battlefield is never too full. And the Pima County Sheriff was publicly and nationally called to task by the director of the FBI. And the statement that they then released was about as milquetoast as it gets. For instance, he mentioned that the FBI was notified at the outset. Well, that was actually a task force officer, which is a member of the Pima County Sheriff's Department that tags along with the FBI, sits in FBI space, important member of the sort of the relationship between the two. But that's not calling the FBI. And when the director of the FBI calls you, Sheriff of Pima County, and says, I have a fixed wing plane ready to take that DNA to Quantico so we can get it analyzed now, those first 48 or 96 hours are very important because you can get leads, and leads dry up very quickly.
I'm less concerned about the lab stuff because this lab in Florida probably can do a good job. I think the FBI has made their noses out of joint that it didn't go to Quantico. But for the collection of the forensic evidence inside, I cannot believe that sheriff's office, was the A team in terms of collecting forensic evidence. And that's where all the clues are. That's where someone did drop the DNA, a piece of hair or something. And I think that's where the FBI, was really important. Not the lab. And I don't think the lab in Florida contaminated the DNA.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that the best in the world is in Quantico. So let's start there if that's an option. Also, it wasn't until I think we talked about the day it became public, Greta, on your show, that they had gotten images of the likely intruder and offender here from a Google Nest camera that Nancy Guthrie had through some back-end systems because the FBI contacted Google, worked with their engineers, and then were able to maintain those images. We could have had those images on day 1 or 2. Instead, we had them on day 6 or 7. That's because the FBI was left out. It's a really good lesson for law enforcement that your side of the battlefield is never too full.
I still think this can be solved, and I think the way that's now going to be solved at this point, the evidence has been contaminated on the scene. But somebody, whoever did this is going to make a mistake. It's going to say something like, yeah, the time I was in Nancy Guthrie's house, oops, like that kind of thing. Or someone's going to say, look, my neighbor's acting really weird, or my neighbor suddenly got all this jewelry that, just something. It's going to be someone tipping somebody. And so we've got to, the reward's got to be out there, and the news media has to keep pounding the story.
Yeah, or somebody who aided and abetted, and I would suggest that somebody probably did help at least in, abetting the crime. So after it occurred, maybe to get rid of the body if that was her fate,
or whatever.
And they're going to get in trouble, and they're going to have to talk because they'll have something bigger to give to authorities than whatever they're in trouble for.
Jay Town, thank you.
Thanks, Greta.
Well, he pleaded guilty, so no trial, but what about sentencing? Well, there was a jury for that, and they gave him the death penalty. Tanner Horner, a former FedEx driver, murdered 7-year-old Athena Strand and admitted the heinous crime. He kidnapped and murdered Strand in 2022 after first delivering a Christmas gift at her home. With the plea of guilty, there was no trial on guilt or not. The matter then went straight to sentencing by a jury. Prosecutors argued for execution. The defense argued against it. Horner's lawyers argued for life in prison without the possibility of parole, but the jury decided on death in 2 hours of deliberation. Coming up.
Crazy. My adrenaline is still running. I'm just thankful to be alive.
That man is being deemed a hero in Philadelphia. Find out why when the record continues.
You're careful about what you bring home when shopping, especially when it comes to feeding your family. Shouldn't your investments work the same way? At Timothy Plan, we offer a wide selection of mutual funds and ETFs that can help you allocate assets without compromising your values. From technology to healthcare, energy to real estate, our funds are not only diverse but uncompromising to your values. Timothy Plan funds are filtered to avoid companies involved in abortion, pornography, human trafficking, and other harmful agendas. What you invest in should reflect what you stand for. Are your investments bearing good fruit? What's in your portfolio? Contact your financial advisor today to find out, or contact Timothy Plan directly at 1-800-TIM-PLAN to discover more. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and and can't get medical help or prescriptions. Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
I'm Yalmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. Now watch the 3 videos on our website and place your order for what may be the best food supplement in the world. Now Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry. Thank you and God bless.
Could you describe California Governor Gavin Newsom's performance in one word? Last night, candidates who want his job were asked to do just that.
Performative.
Bold.
Progressive.
Failed. Steve, failure. You can't take my word.
All right.
Game changing.
Incomplete.
Well, as you probably guessed, the Democratic candidate said positive things about Governor Newsom, and 2 Republican candidates spoke negatively about the outgoing governor. Primary is June 2nd, and what makes this primary unique is that it's a jungle primary. That means the Republican Party and Democratic Party do not hold their own primaries. Instead, all candidates are grouped together, and the top 2 finishers, regardless of party, advance to the general election. So there could be 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans vying for the job come November. Meanwhile, not all heroes wear capes. Yesterday, alongside a Philadelphia elementary school playground, a stolen truck ran a red light. It then crashed into an SUV. That is when a school crossing guard, Jamel Ransom, sprung into action. Ransom pulled a child from the wreckage of the car. Here's Ransom talking about it.
And I tell you, he ran the light, T-boned the lady. I'm bobbing and weaving. I'm just thankful to be alive right now. Thank you, Jesus. I don't know which way to go because he ends up in the schoolyard. Luckily, I wasn't on the corner. I'm in the shade slightly because it's an 82-degree day today.
Coming up, how are bugs, secret identities, and rock and roll connected? Start guessing that answer when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higby from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
At Omaha Steaks, we do burgers differently. We take a premium aged steak like this and turn it into a pure ground burger like this. So this is actually a ribeye. This is a New York strip, top sirloin, beef brisket, and this is a filet mignon. For a limited time, our Burger Perfection flight comes with 20 big, juicy burgers, all for just $79.99. Get it today at omahasteaks.com/TV. This is Burger Perfection, guaranteed.
I've been using Experian Boost to help raise my credit scores, but Experian Boost is even better, because now my monthly insurance payments could help boost my scores too. It does it instantly and it's free. So get it through the Experian app.
Honey, Mortgage Bunny 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Bunny 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL. A one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green-lip mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. And Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy one bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy one, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
Last month, these mysterious posters popped up around London. They were ads that said, the cockroaches with a code underneath. What are the cockroaches? Well, it turns out they're the Rolling Stones. And for the past month, the Stones went undercover. They even released a song with the secret name. But a lot of fans thought it was the Rolling Stones. How? Because back in 1977, the Stones used that same name to play a surprise show in Toronto. So why all this talk of bugs and secret identities? Well, yesterday, the Rolling Stones officially confirmed that they are coming out with a new album. This album will include an appearance from the band's late drummer, Charlie Watts. He died 5 years ago. The band is using Watts from one of his final recording sessions. The album will also feature Paul McCartney, Steve Winwood, and Robert Smith from The Shore. But with all that buzz, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait 2 months. The album doesn't come out until July 10th. Fun fact, in 1962, the Rolling Stones were formed. We did the math with a calculator. It's 64 years ago. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is next. Stay with Newsmax.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.